Yeah, let me back out. I'll be back in. I'll be
All
back
right.
in a few minutes.
Okay. All right. We live, everybody. Yo, this is Shakim once again. Man, I got two guests with me. I got Elvin, Speights, and I got James. Well, James, Tyler. I don't know which one you choose to go by. Bessenger. Um. So we're gonna. I think Elvin then froze up. He'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back. Let me
So,
share.
okay. All right. Okay. He's sharing. Okay. So tonight, what we're gonna be talking about. I know there's been a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, especially with police community relations. Right now, the world is in the middle of a riot. You know, everybody is kind of like, in arms right now because it's so much tension. And in the midst of tension, we have different ideologies that are competing, kind of going back and forth. So it kind of leaves everybody wondering, where did we go from here? How did we get here? And what are we going to do now about these issues? So Tyler here, from talking to Tyler, I'll let him introduce himself and his opinions on what's going on now. And we have Elvin, and Elvin will introduce himself and his opinions on what we have now. So the first thing I want to talk about basically is systemic racism, right? Systemic racism. I know Tyler has said oftentimes that, by him, looking at the environment that we're in now, he believes that systemic racism isn't what we perceive it to be now. He thinks that it more so doesn't necessarily exist. I'll let him explain. He can explain it better than me. Of course, Elvin does feel that systemic racism does exist. So, Tyler, I'll go ahead and let you start and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's James Bessenger or Tyler, whichever you prefer. I live in Charleston. As far as what you were talking about with systemic racism, I definitely understand why people think that there is, or that why that narrative exists. It's just looking at it from an outsider's perspective, and I know I'm white. My opinion may be only worth so much in this conversation as far as that goes. But to me, it looks more. You're always going to have racist people, no matter where you're at in the world. There's always going to be those assholes that are racist for no reason. No reason. Can't tell you anything besides skin color, why they're basing their decisions. You're always going to have those people, even in the United States. But I don't think the existence of those people on rare and extenuating occasions is indicative of the whole system. I'm gay, and I know that there's not this direct parallel between the gay experience and the black experience in America. I would never suggest that there is. But on the whole, I wouldn't say that the United States is a homophobic country. I know there's people who would disagree with me. Lots of gay people would completely disagree with me for that. I believe there's homophobic people. I believe homophobic things happen. I don't think that makes this a homophobic country on the whole. And I think it's a very similar situation with racism. Yes, there's racist people. Yes, there's situations where race may or may not be a driving factor, but I don't think that's indicative of our country as a whole that way.
Okay.
Michael?
Yeah, yes, sir. You go. Yes, sir.
All right. I think he got that totally wrong. This country was based and started on racism. Systematic racism still goes on to this day right now. You look at Ahmaud Arbery, who was in Georgia, who was jogging in a neighborhood. He stopped and looked at a house. And because he was a black man to stop and look in the house, he was presumed to be going to steal something, and we go trespassing. However, in that neighborhood, you also saw videos of other people who was going inside that house who were white, who didn't have the police called on, who the white people weren't called on, and they were just, when they went inside the same house that Ahmaud went in, they was just checking it out. It was okay. There was no one brought a concern. No one called the homeowner when they went inside the exact same house doing the exact same thing that Ahmaud did. But when Ahmaud went inside the house, all of a sudden now he must be there for something illegal. He's got to be doing some ill intent. Why couldn't he, like everyone else in that neighborhood, just been wanting to check the house out? We like houses too. So, to go off the fact of saying that systematic racism doesn't exist is a cop-out. Systematic racism is the reason why all this stuff is happening now, and especially with the police force.
I think it's a bit of a cop-out to use one incident like that and say that it's indicative of the entire country. I would agree with you that what happened to him is terrible. Those people were probably racist, and they should be, dealt with through the courts. But I don't think that happening in Georgia is an indication of the entire state of Georgia or the southeast of the United States being racist. any more than any other thing that happened. Take, for example, another case that got very little coverage, and I forget which incident happened right after. It was either right after the shooting here in Charleston or the Mike Brown incident. There was a white Australian exchange student. You can look it up. Just Google 3 black teenagers Australian exchange student. It comes up. An Australian exchange student in, I think it was Oklahoma, out for a jog, and these 3 black teenagers had been playing Grand Theft Auto, went on a drive, drove by, murdered this kid, drove by, shot this white kid dead. And when they arrested the kid, said it was because they wanted to know what it was like to kill somebody. That's literally happened in Oklahoma. I don't think that means it's a racist country because some black kids killed a white kid.
Hey, let me ask you a question. What you say this now? What they do when they killed that white kid?
They said they wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody.
But what happened when they killed the white kid?
They were arrested.
They were arrested. Did they have to protest?
What?
Did they have to march? Any of that was required? No, they were arrested, right?
But that doesn't have anything to do with the premise of that.
I'm trying. Okay, so you're saying that when okay, for instance, let's use this, and I'm just using Ahmaud for the recent situation. We can go back. There's countless times we can talk about the racism.
If we had a protest, a mass riot every time a white person was killed by a cop or a person of color, the protest would be nonstop.
But so you don't have to protest. That's why you don't do it. You don't have to protest. Let me ask you a question.
They didn't burn any buildings down in Georgia, and those guys got arrested.
We did have to protest in Georgia.
Dylan Roof got arrested, and no buildings burned in Charleston.
Roof got. Okay. So if you want to bring up Dylan Roof's arrest, let's use Dylan Roof's arrest. Which one you want to talk about?
I agree with you.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna let you. Let me go ahead. Let me finish now because you're saying these comments. So let me address each one. You're going to different ones. Let me address each one. You mentioned Dylan Roof's arrest.
Yeah, let's go one at a time.
Sure. Okay, so you mentioned Dylan Roof's arrest. You talking about that very pleasable arrest where he was considered armed and dangerous after killing 9 people in the car, and the cops approached him with no guns drawn, no weapons. He got out the car, no bruise, no frisk, and took him to get a burger because he was hungry. Are you talking about that arrest?
That was bullshit. I agree with you.
Oh, okay. So I'm just saying because remember now we're looking at a black man who was just choked to death in the street because they said he wrote a bad check.
Right, that was bullshit.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So you brought it up. I only brought Ahmaud Marbury because I don't want to have to travel.
My point was the arrest was made and no buildings had to burn in Charleston. That was my point.
Okay, and my point to you being is that the reason why we protest and have to protest when it's us because that's the only way we get our voices heard. Remember
it's not.
Okay.
So Ahmaud, let me ask you a question. How do y'all define systemic racism? Let's get an understanding of that definition for the people in the comments because we're seeing that. So I'll let James, you explain, Elvin, you explain. What do you see as systemic racism?
For me, a system of systemic racism would be something like an apartheid system. Like you see, arguably, I know some conservatives would string me up for this. Maybe you could say in Israel, South America, systems like that. That to me is a systemic racism. When you have it in writing by the government, enforceable by law, screw this race is superior. We don't have anything like that in America.
Okay, glad he said that. Let me drop some facts on you, Shakim. Obama had
what do you for the question? What's your definition?
I'm going to answer that. I'm about to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer your question in facts. I'm not going to give you what I think. I'm going to give you facts. So Obama had a task force put together in 2014 about the police killings versus blacks and whites in the police force. So you talk about systematic racism. Let me give you the findings of that study. Of 1,165 recent studies, right? 96% of black men per 100,000 were at risk of being killed by the police, twice the risk of white men. That's systematic racism. When we are committing the same crime as a white man, we stand twice the risk of being killed unarmed as a white man. That's systematic racism in this country. Systematic racism in this country is the reason why black people go to prison 5 times the rate of white people for the same crime. That's systematic racism. That's racism because it doesn't matter on the crime. So you can't say it's just a crime anymore because if you commit a crime and I commit a crime, but you get a slap on the wrist and sent home and I get years for the same crime, what's the difference between us?
That's bullshit. Yeah.
Okay, why is that bullshit? All right, let's see. Why do you say that?
Why do I say what?
You said it's bullshit. Explain.
No, if we were charged for the same crime and my punishment was less severe than his, that would be bullshit. That would be bullshit in my opinion.
But that's our reality. That's our reality. So
I know,
and if you, I mean, like I say, you just have to look at it, brother. Look at it.
Let me say this. When we talk about things like systematic racism, from my perspective, and you may have a different one, that's talking about more like things like government and the law. When we talk about things like arrests and police, I see the two very different only on the terms of with the government, it's law, it's in writing, it's legislation. With police, you're dealing with individual people. I only say this because I have several people in my family that are in law enforcement, and I hope none of them watch this because they know I hate cops. I see cops as something completely different. Those are individuals who are able to take the law into their own hands at any given moment, wherever they happen to be, whoever they're dealing with, and make decisions based on their way they view the world. I believe our problem when it comes to things like arrests and what a lot of what is viewed as systematic racism in the country vis-a-vis interactions with the police could be dealt with if we dealt with the police as a problem. I don't see it as a racial issue so much as an issue where the police in this country have been let loose like these feral dogs, and the rest of us are just, fuck it, we have to deal with these cops that get away with whatever they want. And I hate that we see these situations come up time and time again where it's made an issue. It's either it's a white person that's killed by a cop and nothing's said about it, or it's a black person that's killed by a cop and the whole narrative is about race. And in the end, the cops get away with it, and it happens again and again and again.
So what you just said explains why we protest. What you just said explains why we protest.
And here's my complaint, and I understand why you protest. That's why I said I understand why the protests are happening. But my complaint is today when I turned on the news and they were showing the city where the protests were, on one corner was this like 6-story apartment building that was ashes. The next corner was a Wendy's that was ashes, an AutoZone, ashes, a Target completely cleaned out. And on the opposite corner, on the same corner, was a police station with 12-foot barriers built all the way around. Nothing, the complaint, and I'm not, God forbid, I don't want anybody kicking my door down. I'm not suggesting that we should burn the police departments down. But the cops are the ones causing the problems, and we're taking it out on those people at Target don't have a job now. Those people at Wendy's, AutoZone, you name it, don't have jobs now. And that's in that black community. And the cops have turned their police station into a fortress and can do the same shit tomorrow. So my complaint is when these things happen, instead of banding together as the citizens of this country that we are, we divide on race and argue amongst ourselves, and the cops and the government get a free pass to do the shit all over again.
So I saw the pictures too in Minnesota, and they were destroying police cars and police vehicles as well. They were attacking the cops. I saw the same videos. I mean, listen, as far as the looting, that's just a distraction. I'm not even going to address the looting and whatever come out there. That's a distraction. I'm more interested in what caused us to get here. I don't care about what they did.
So Elvin, let me ask a quick question. Okay. So Elvin, Tyler just said that it's not a racial issue, more so it's a issue with policing and how police officers patrol neighborhoods and the training. What's your response to that?
It's both. First of all, it's both. It's racist and it's the training. First, you got to understand it. We're going to take it back. Let me take you back, Tyler. Remember when the police first started, they were formed to catch slaves. It was formed on slavery. You talking about an institution now that enforces the law that was based on slavery. When the first police was formed, they were formed to catch slaves. So the training has always been for us as blacks to never trust. Now you can look that up. Look it up and Google it. So and as far as the training, like I said, and it's not just with the police, the arrest, the law, the courts, the jail, we always get screwed. Black people, we are the minority, but we are the majority in jail. So if you don't believe that it's systematic racism, then you believe that we just bad as hell, huh? We just out here doing all kind of shit. That's why we in prison. Because let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Let me give this example. So I watched, just to show you how systematic racism goes, and I wish I had the kid name, but everybody knows the story. Remember the 21-year-old man who kissed the girl at the party, who got 12 years, and all he did was kiss her? You remember that story? I can Google it in a second. Someone can Google it. I'll get you the name. He was a 21-year-old black man in college. He kissed a girl at a party. Okay, didn't have sex with her, didn't penetrate her, didn't nothing orally. He just kissed her. He got 10 years in prison for that because she said that he kissed her and touched her. Now,
well, you can
remember,
thank liberal feminists for that one. That's a liberal feminist movement.
No, because let me tell you, remember the white guy who raped the girl at the party, recorded it, put it on social media, and he got 3 months.
He should have been thrown.
He got 3 months.
Yeah, he should have been thrown under the jail.
You know what I'm saying? And he raped. Not only did he rape the girl, but he put it on social media. And you know what the judge said about him? Now they both were college kids, but the judge said that he didn't want to ruin this guy's life by making him a rapist. So what about the black man who was in prison? Why isn't America worried about ruining his life? But see, this is our everyday. This is every day. I can go down the list and tell you stories and countless times of how the justice system is not for blacks.
Okay, okay, Tyler, go ahead and respond. What's your response to that?
Again, I'm not even gonna say that I disagree. So I was a paralegal in the Army, and I can tell you firsthand. My job was processing like non-judicial punishments, court-martials, kicking people. If soldiers got in trouble, it was my job to process the paperwork. And I can tell you firsthand, like I saw commanders, white commanders, push punishments on soldiers more stringently based on race, on sexual orientation, on gender. I've seen it on all. So all these things do exist. I can't, if any conservative, anybody on the planet that will look at you and say that as long as we have humans as arbiters in systems like this, that there's no racism is a liar. We're always going to have that kind of shit. My problem.
Wouldn't that be systemic racism?
I don't know. No, not systemic, because again, it's not the system that's designed that way. It's people that are pulling the levers in the system. You have to get rid of those people. I don't think we could find a single place if we take the law of the United States and open it out and look at it. I think there's. I don't want to say none because there's going to be some nerd out there who Googles a law in Nebraska and proves me wrong. But for the whole, I don't think we'd find anything that is systemically in writing racism that holds any particular race back. That's what, like I said, that's how I view systemic. We may have a different definition of systemic, but we're always going to have people in positions, whether it's a cop on the neck of some poor guy, in Minnesota, or a judge, on the Supreme Court. As long as we have people in these systems, there's going to be problems. But rather than let those people that have those problems in those positions divide the whole country and make us all fight each other, we need to work together to get those people out of those positions. Instead of burning down our retail centers and setting our cities on fire, let's figure out who these assholes are and string them up. That's how we fix it.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Tyler, I remember we was talking and you brought up the fact that, and I hear a lot of people bring it up. They say that, they feel that when white people get shot by police or something of that nature, it doesn't get media attention. Do you think that's a problem? Do you think that the media is trying to manipulate and play games with people by,
I know that's what it is. Shakim, the media, all of us know if they wanted to, they could flip this whole narrative in a year or two by stop reporting on black crimes and suddenly start making a huge deal out of the however many Hispanics get killed. And then suddenly they'll find out how many blacks kill Hispanics every year. And all of a sudden the United States is full of black people that hate Mexicans. And then, or they could change it. And suddenly they'll find out how many black people are attacking gay people. And suddenly we have, African Americans in the United States trying to wipe out gays. They decide the narrative. They get to decide which ones we pay attention to and which ones we don't. That's why they care about, and I'm not, it's awful. Please don't take me out of context. That's why we're talking about the guy who was killed by the cop, in Minnesota, and not the little girl who was killed in the drive-by in Chicago. Like while she was doing homework, I think it was a story a few months ago, a little girl at the dining room table with her grandma doing homework and was shot in a drive-by, like accidental wrong house. 9-year-old girl, black girl. Nobody knows who her name is, but everybody will know who George Floyd is forever. Why? Because she was killed by a black gang and he was killed by a cop, a white cop. So the media decides which ones of these incidents we care about. Thousands of people have died every month in this country, and we only know 2 or 3 names a year. It's because the media decides who we care about. Instead of addressing the problem, they whip us all into a frenzy, and the problem continues.
You live in Charleston, right?
I do.
So how'd you hear about the girl in Chicago?
It was on
the news.
Yeah, Yeah, well,
So then the media covered it, right?
Not like Fox News or CNN. I read a lot of I read RT, I read Al Jazeera, I read Breitbart, I read BBC.
So
I read a lot of non-American news.
So let me explain where I stand when we talking about if we're going to talk about proximity crime, because I don't even entertain the conversation on black crime, because crime is everywhere, and it's proximity crime. You're going to have crime in the area you are. If you live in a majority white neighborhood, it's going to be white on white. If it's majority black area, it's going to be black on black. Same thing with Asian, Mexican, across the board. So I don't even entertain those conversations. But
so why don't we wait? So why don't we treat cops the same way? Why don't we say
because first of all, you're talking to a higher standard.
Why can't we say it's cops on people crime and deal with cops?
A cop is someone who's in a position who's supposed to enforce the law and supposed to be fair. You're not the same as the gang. You're not the same as the gangbanger. The reason why, and again, I just read you why. I just read you on a study where it shows that black people are twice as likely to be killed by a white man. Yes, this is why we bring it to the attention. And until that was brought to the attention, the reason why Obama brought it to the attention is because people who think like you didn't think it was a problem. So when the study was done on it,
a problem. I don't think it's not a problem.
You just said that you think it's a cop on black.
I say if we deal with the cops, we eliminate both of those statistics. We don't have to compare.
Okay, so
this is what I'm trying to get to understand. This many blacks were killed. Let's just deal with the cops. Instead of going back and forth at each other, well, this many blacks and this many whites. Let's deal with the people that are killing both of us. Like, why are we arguing with each other?
So that's what we're doing. That's still what we're doing. You got just as many white people out there protesting with us as blacks. But,
right, but
it does not change the.
But the police station is still intact and Target is in flames. I don't understand. Like, that's the problem.
I don't understand what you're not getting. Like if you let me finish, you might understand. But I don't understand what you're getting. So you asked why we don't talk about the cops. We are talking about the cops, but you're talking about a racist system.
You're talking about the cops. The talk is about the cops, but the actions aren't about the cops. The talk is about cops and race. The actions is about stealing TVs and burning restaurants. That's my problem. That's why nothing gets done. That's why none of us.
Time out. What did you just say?
I'm talking about the actions and the words. I'm talking about the words not matching the actions. The words are about.
So listen again. So this is what I'm not going to do. All right, go ahead. Listen, y'all go ahead, and then the next time we start talking, y'all gotta let me finish. Because every time I start trying to say something,
let's go one at a time. Yeah, let's go one at a time.
Yeah. Because like every time I start talking, I'm getting. I don't want to get into the argument. I'm trying to do this talk. Okay. So this is what it is here. You know, as far as the looting and all that stuff going on, that's just the casualty of the riot. And before it got to this, and let's not forget this, all right? Before you didn't mention that. Let me finish.
Let him finish.
Well, before it got to the point that we started looting and rioting, we were peaceful protesting. And when we were peaceful protesting, they were throwing tear gas and hitting us with water hose. So they initiated where it is now. We first started originally, it was peaceful. But let me ask you a question. We've been peaceful protesting for a long time. This isn't the last guy.
Peaceful. I never said be peaceful. I didn't say peaceful.
So my whole point is this. He isn't the first guy or the last guy in the last month who has died at the hands of the police. We had a woman who was just killed in her bed at the hands of the police. So how much time do you think that we're going to keep coming out here singing Kumbaya and being nice about it?
I didn't ask you to do this. That's not what I asked you to do.
We don't try. So that's why I say I don't want to
let James. I'm a time, but good point. Come on, go ahead, James.
I didn't say anything about singing Kumbaya and peaceful. I didn't even say the protest should be peaceful at this point, because I really do think we're getting to a point where peaceful protest, that was my whole argument when this thing started. No one is saying we should Kumbaya and have peaceful protest, but on this side of your mouth, you're telling me the police are doing this and the system is doing that and this. But when it's all put into action on the streets in the city, like I said, all the retail buildings and restaurants are on fire and the cops have a new fortress in town. If you're really upset about the cops and you really want to deal with the cops, you would be putting out a message. Okay, look, stop the bullshit with burning down restaurants. What the fuck you doing? Give the flat screen TV back. Let's deal with the problem. It's like, it would be like me saying, if I get stopped by a black cop, I'm pissed off, or my brother gets killed by a black cop and I go over to the gardens and burn the gardens down. It's a black neighborhood. I go burn it down because my white brother was killed by a black cop. My complaint's not with the gardens. My complaint's with the cop that killed my fucking brother. Like, I don't understand why we make excuses.
Again, you want to talk about.
Let me finish.
You can cut me off all night.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I talked like 2 minutes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. And then I'm gonna go. Go ahead.
It's good. Go ahead.
Because you want to talk about the loot. Let me tell you something again. Let's not forget the fact we're not going to push the agenda and talk about the looting. I don't even care about what they do. I don't blame them. And the fact that they didn't burn, the fact that
okay, let him talk. Let him talk. Let Elvin talk. Let him talk.
The fact that they didn't
the way he
burn
let me talk, right?
Down,
the way he let me talk.
We gonna you just talk. Go ahead. We gonna go back and we gonna let him.
Okay.
Let him
I want everybody watching this to understand that the protest started off peaceful. It started off peaceful. They were attacked first. If you want to go at the gist of it and you want to go to reality, they were attacked first because they start off with a peaceful protest.
Agreed.
They were hit with tear gas. They were hit with water hose. They had done nothing wrong and had committed no crime at that point. So they escalated this protest into where it is now. So they don't get to be the victims. Now, as far as the looting and everything else, guess what? I don't care. That's just going to be a casualty of the situation. Because when it started off and they were peaceful, then it was peaceful. They escalated to where it is now. That's going to be a casualty. But if you want to talk about the protests and stuff like that, let's talk back in 2013 when white folks took to the street to riot and protest because the Boston Red Sox won the game 6 in the World Series, and they tore up the city over their team that won. Where was the media then? Why wasn't the media covering it then? Why wasn't the media showing them looting and stuff then?
Okay, all right. So check this out. What I'm gonna do, y'all, to make this nice and fair, real fair, I got a timer. 2 minutes, a statement. Y'all think is that good, or y'all want 2 or 3 minutes? What y'all want? 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
Yep.
Whatever.
3 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
I'll make it fair. 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right. So Tyler, go ahead with your rebuttal. I got you on the clock.
I think to say that we just don't care about the looting, that the looting can just happen, is to forfeit all of your political capital in this argument. If you want to make change and you want to see action taken, then the only action happening in the debate can't be burning down buildings and looting and robbing stores. To say you just don't care, that's irresponsible. That's to forfeit. You don't care. You really don't care about your entire movement if you say I just don't care if the whole narrative is going to be about these buildings burning and the cops get a pass. Because the whole narrative now is focused on these buildings that are burning, these cars that are getting set on fire. Nobody's even talking about what happened. It's all about the riots. It just it's a waste of time. It's a wasted effort. If all that effort and all of that focus could be put in dealing with the issue it's gonna come up again. Y'all, I'm not joking. Like, give it 2 months, give it a year. This exact same situation is gonna happen again because we're not addressing the actual situation, the actual issue, which is the police. That's our problem. It's a problem for the Black community, white community, gay community, lesbian, straight, Christian, Muslim, Jewish. It doesn't matter. They're treating all of us that way. The media chooses which ones they want to make a big deal about, and we're being sheep and falling right into it. And in the meantime, the whole narrative is getting hijacked by people who want to steal TVs. It's ridiculous, and it's not benefiting anybody. And it's just going to keep letting the problem happen again. You can have the rest of my time.
All right. Let me stop. All right, Elvin, go ahead. Go ahead.
Listen, again, I'm not even going to sit here and keep addressing the looting. That stuff is going to happen, whatever. The whole point of it, again, is like I said, we started off peaceful. And for every protest, we started off peaceful. We were attacked first. And you're right, it does happen again. So maybe we need to stop being so damn peaceful and start coming at these riots the other way. The only people who are going to think about what we're doing is those like yourself who try to switch the narrative. Yes, the media has to cover this, but guess what? It wasn't the fact of just the media. This was recorded. This man was on the ground with a cup on his neck, begging and saying he can't breathe. We've seen that before. We've seen a man be choked out by the police, screaming he can't breathe, and nothing is done while other cops watch it happen. And you know what else? That cop was only fired. We tied. So to me, be lucky that all we did was loot and damn near protest in the street. Be lucky, because you know what? We should have came at this a different way. We damn sure should have, but I'm not going to sit here and get on a point. I'm not going to talk about black on black crime because that's proximity crime, because that goes across the boards. I'm not going to sit here and talk about, oh, he stole a TV, whatever the case is. God damn it, guess what? If there was a black person stole a TV, I saw the media too. There was just as many white boys grabbing damn TVs at the damn store too. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't just a black thing. As a matter of fact, when I saw the clips on TV, it was more whites looting out the stores than blacks. We were on the street putting in leg work. How much time I got left in you?
You got a minute.
Okay, so I'm not even gonna sit here and address that again. Like I said, that's a casualty, and it does not take away the fact. If you want to talk about everything in a nutshell and talk about it, let's talk about why we're here. That's what you get. We looting in the street, we rioting, we protesting, we burn down buildings. That sounds good. That's an effect. That's an effect. Now tell me why we're here. And as far as the cops, we've been asking for this. We've been showing it. Like I said, I just read you a study that was done in 2018.
10 seconds.
The most recent study. How much? The most recent study that shows that Black people are twice as likely killed by white people for the same crime. I can send it to you. I can post it on this link.
To be killed?
Why,
twice as likely to be killed?
Twice as likely to be killed as a white man for the same crime. A Black man is twice as likely to be killed by the police as a white man for committing the same crime. Meaning, if you got in your car and you high-speed chase and they chased you, they're more likely to come to you with the idea that we're going to take him alive. With me, they already thinking we're going to kill this nigga.
Okay. All right, what you got, Jane?
No, like I said, I think he'll have a completely different attitude about the whole "I just don't give a shit" when it's North Charleston that's on fire. When it's, the neighborhood surrounding the community resource center in North Charleston that's being looted and robbed and in fire. Suddenly he just won't care. It happens. It's collateral damage. And at the same time, those Black people are going to be without homes and without houses and without jobs, and the cops are going to be driving around doing the same shit. It's irresponsible. It's you're not an activist if you can watch something like that happen and your narrative, your cause be hijacked like that. That's not what activists do. That's not what someone who's devoted to a cause does. To watch your whole narrative get hijacked like that and say you just don't care, that's just going to happen. You're not as invested in your cause as you say you are, because you're letting it get hijacked.
So, okay, go ahead, Elvin. Let me reset it.
So,
right.
let me tell you what my cause is. My cause is this. You want to focus on the looting. I want to focus on what caused the riot.
On the police. I want to focus on the police.
So then let's focus on that. Again, you're talking about the effect. That's all your argument is.
No,
the effect.
I'm talking about the cause, which is the police.
Okay, you're talking about the effect now. You're talking about everything that's going on because of the effect. I'm talking about the cause. Let's talk about what caused this to happen. We can sit here.
He's saying the police.
Okay, so but it's not just the police. It's the police and the racist practices that's in the justice system.
Let's talk about the police.
It is the racist justice system that is in the police. Guess what? You said one thing I agree with. There is no law that says if a Black person does this, he gets this amount of time. If a white person does this, they get that amount of time. You're right. There is no law. However, the law goes like this. It goes, when you commit a crime, you got a low end of the law of punishment and you got a high end.
Yeah.
Where do you think you fall versus where I fall?
I think that depends on the judge.
We've already proven that.
I know that depends on the judge.
So let me break it down to you on how much time I got left?
You got a minute.
Okay, let me break it down to you on the facts. Black men are 4 times likely to go to prison than white men. 4 times likely for the same crime, even if it's our first offense. We're twice as likely to be killed by the police for the same offense. It doesn't matter what we do. The 94 crime bill that was written by a white man sent over, I'm going to give you the exact numbers, hundreds of thousands of people to jail. You know one thing in the crime bill that's so funny, just to show you how it works and how racism works? You could have crack and cocaine, right? Now, if you don't, I don't know if you know about drugs, I'll give you a quick little history record. Cocaine is the powder. Cocaine is the powder. Crack is the crack rock. It's the hard form. In society, cocaine was more of a white drug. Crack was a Black drug. You would have to get caught with 3 times as much cocaine as the amount of coke as crack rock to get the same charge I would have got. So meaning if I had 1 rock worth $20, I could have been facing 2 years for 1 rock. You would have had to have $60 worth of powder in your possession to face the same time I had for 1.
Mm-hmm.
We've been screwed in this. It's not just the cops. It's the injustice, and it's the justice system, the cops, the lawyer, judges. We've been screwed.
Okay.
All right, Tom. All right, go ahead, Tyler. Let me start.
So then,
all right, go ahead.
Say we accept that premise, and it's a big racist, hot fucking dumpster fire of a mess of a system we have. How do you, like? Let's not talk about what's happened, the numbers, the statistics, any of that, like what's happened in the past, none of that shit matters. Let's say 10 years from now, how do we fix this? How do we make it stop? What's your idea of how we go in and systematically, unsystematically fuck the system?
Are you giving them the rest of your time? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I want to know how he wants. I don't want to talk about the ifs, ands, buts, and has-beens. I want to talk about his vision of fixing it.
Okay.
So, first of all, we got to get everybody to admit that the system is even broken, right? And like you said, and the second is the voting and getting the right people in place, because the laws have to be changed. The laws have to be changed. Police have to go back to training and realize. But again, I'm gonna say it like this here: the biggest problem is racism is hidden now. It's hidden. You don't have to put your sheet on anymore and go out here and protest. Walk with your brothers in the Klan suit. You get a position and you can disguise your racism. Then they're not, like I said, they're not changing the hoods for a badge, and we are the victims of it. So the only way that we're gonna change the narrative is whenever we catch someone who is breaking the law on some type of term of this, they got to be punished to the full. We got to. All the police, the training needs to be done. I never understood why I watch police go to a shooting range and they always shoot upper body shots, right? So when someone's running away from you, you can't be shot to shoot them in the leg or no other non-lethal spot. It's always a chest shot. I never understood how a cop can feel with the excuse that he feels threatened when a person is running away from you. But see, we are the victims of that. We are the victims. Again, all these things that they say,
not just you. We all are.
One more minute. Go ahead. You guys still got a minute. You want to give me your time?
No. The difference with this, Tyler, when you get arrested, if you get pulled over, you can reach in your glove box, you can fiddle around in your car, you can do whatever the case is. And
I can tell you some stories.
Okay, so when I get pulled over, I got to be announcing out the whole time of what I'm doing. I got to have my hands on the steering wheel. I got to wait for the cop to come to the window. Then I got to ask him if I can reach in my glove box and give him my license and registration. And then this is what we go through. I had to teach my kids that.
We do the same thing. We do the same thing. I promise you, we do the same thing. I know I do the same thing every time. I don't trust those motherfuckers. I do the same thing.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let me ask a question. So now that we're talking about systemic racism, Tyler, do you feel that it has ever existed? And if it has existed, when did it end? If you're saying it doesn't exist anymore, when do you think it actually ended? Has it existed? If it did, when did it end?
It definitely, you can't say it never. Anybody who says it never existed is a liar. I mean, we had a system of slavery in this country. There was definitely systemic racism at some point. The argument over when it ended, that's not a period in time. You probably have to say somewhere between, if you're going to be honest, somewhere between 1964 and 2005, maybe. It depends if you're including gay rights and shit. You want to throw that in there? Maybe 2015, but just race, maybe 2005-ish. So no, there's definitely been a system of that in here, and it will. That's why I say that. And there will always appear to be. There will always be the evidence to create a narrative that there is, because there will always be racist people. It's just our decision as a society whether we're gonna feed that narrative of, oh, we have to think each other's a boogeyman all the time because of race, or if we're gonna deal with the people that create those situations. That's like what he was talking about with the cops. I've always been of the mindset cops need to be like firemen and like EMTs. Firemen don't drive around looking for buildings that are on fire. EMTs don't drive around asking anybody, "Are you good? You good? You need some help? You good?" No, cops shouldn't be driving around looking for people to fuck up their day and give them a ticket, or drag them out of their car, or ask them unnecessary questions, or show me your papers like this is Nazi Germany. Cops need to be the whole institution needs to be reformed. And I think if we do that, instead of talking about race and this and that and third, we can deal with the racial issues that exist. But I think we'd cut out a huge chunk of this whole conversation if we just reach in and snatch the guts out of the police department as an institution and reform it.
Okay, so Elvin, what is your response? He said racism ended where he feels systemic racism ended between in the 60s or between 2005. What do you feel that? What's your rebuttal to that? How do you feel about that statement?
Did he fall asleep in 2005? That's the one thing I can think. See, but again, listen, James, let me explain it like this again. You know, you ain't gonna never feel what we go through.
I was high.
I'm just gonna tell you. I mean, you can whatever. You ain't gonna never feel it. Not when I'm sitting here watching. You just watch a black man got killed for 8 minutes in the street, and you can sit here and still say that systematic racism still doesn't exist. And it's funny to me because you said in the 60s, redlining just ended in 1970. You know what redlining is?
That's why I started the timeline in the 60s. That's the start of it. That's the civil rights.
But I mean, but even to this date, even to this date with the redlining, those practices still affect black policies. They still affect black people.
The redlining's not legal. It's not. You can't.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Go ahead. Say something.
Can you hear me?
It sounds like you're in a tunnel.
No.
Is that me? Can you hear him, Elvin? Because it sounds like he's in a tunnel to me.
Yeah, it sounds like you in a tunnel. Sounds like you in a tunnel.
Nothing's changed. Hold on. Is that better?
Hey, pause my time too, King.
Yeah.
Is that better?
No, you might need to leave and come back in.
Yeah, try go out and then come back in. Go out and then come right back in. Okay.
I'll wait for him.
So yeah, Elvin, the 1966, 2005. What was you?
I think that's the stupidest thing I've heard in my life. You know, like I said, he must have fell asleep in 2005 in some bubble and just be coming back. That's the only way he can say something like that. But then again, you have to look at who he is. It's easy for you to say that, and then what happens, and I don't mean to offend nobody, but this is the realness. Because he's white and he's gay, now he feels some type of including, like, oh, well, I'm gay, so therefore I can feel on the same level. I don't buy it. I don't get that. So,
right, let me hear.
Better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so
what were we saying?
Racism still is strong today. It's still strong today. It's still going on. Ain't nothing changed. What it is now is more. It's better hid.
You can't say nothing.
Okay, you tell me.
Things have changed.
So what do you think changed?
You're not a slave.
What do you think changed?
All right,
Let's use Charleston. Let's use the fairgrounds. Let's use fairgrounds on something we both live, right?
Okay, sure.
The neighborhoods in Charleston. You do have black folks in Mount Pleasant, right? But what is Mount Pleasant?
I don't know. I live in a building where I'm the only white person in this building, so I don't.
Okay, so where do you stay?
West Ashley.
Okay, so West Ashley's diverse. I'll give you West Ashley, but the high priorities, Mount Pleasant, downtown. You watch those places get take over.
Oh, that's all rich white Yankees. Rich white Yankees. All rich white Yankees.
Okay. Explain that, Todd. Explain that. You on the clock. Explain that. Yankees took over downtown. You on the clock.
Oh God, dude. Okay, so let's go back to 1975 or 1970 when Charleston was 50% black, and then you had Joe Riley, which you can't blame it all on Joe Riley because Charleston has had Democratic mayors almost nonstop since like 1836. Democrats have been in charge of Charleston. The only Republicans in charge of Charleston were during Reconstruction. It's been Democrats ever since. And in the 70s, Charleston was about 50% black, roughly 50% black in 1970. Mayor Joe Riley took over in 75. He left office, and suddenly Charleston is less than 25% black. But the Democrats are the party of black people. You have been gentrified out of a city. Blacks and whites have lived in 1860, the year before the Civil War started. There was an estimated 3,000 free blacks living in what is now called downtown Charleston. Free blacks that owned houses, owned businesses. That's a year before the Civil War. 3,000. Now you go downtown and find me 3,000 black houses that are owned by blacks, or 3,000 black businesses.
You're naming.
Hold on. I'll let you get it. Let's get the time. Get the time.
I know you know this. That's what I mean by rich white Yankees. These people that are coming in. It's Charleston, whether it's black families or white families that have been here for generations. My family's been in this area since the 1750s. It's about to where my family can't afford to be here anymore. Black families even worse off. Like the generations, the families that built this city can't afford to live in the fucking thing anymore. That's not systematic racism. That's systematic greed. And that's all due to the Democratic Party who's been in charge of this city for 200 years.
All right, let me start your time, Elvin. Go ahead. I'm starting you, Elvin. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. I love how you do the deflection and you put Democrats and you don't put white, because Joe Rowley was white. And those who did it. Oh, okay. So I love how you put the deflection in there and just try to disguise it and say, instead of saying Joe Rowley, the white man, you say the Democrats. I get it. But regardless of how you do it, Joe Rowley was a white man, and you're right. We did used to dominate. We did used to dominate downtown Charleston. We didn't give up downtown Charleston. We didn't just say, forget it, y'all can have it. We didn't sell out. We were gentrified. We were gentrified out. So if you want to put what you're just saying and get rid of the titles, the black people were gentrified out of downtown Charleston by the white people. Now, you can call them Democrat, Yankees, whatever you want to call them, but that's how we lost our homes in downtown Charleston. Black people lost their homes in downtown Charleston to white people who wanted their area. Which happens to us.
So did white Charlestonians. That's my point.
Hold on. Elvin still got a time. Go ahead. I know. You still got.
So my whole point being is this. We live in Charleston, like you say, and guess what? We still got majority white schools here in Charleston. We still got majority white schools. We got majority black schools, and of course, the majority black schools are always lacking what the majority white schools get. And we're all in Charleston County. And just to make sure that y'all keep it that way, y'all include little cute things that go along with it. How much time I got, Keem, before I even break this down?
Ooh, you got about 30 seconds.
All right, I'll catch you on the next one. Go ahead. Okay. He can have it. I'll catch you on the next one.
Okay. All right, Tyler, start. Give us your rebuttal.
I get you with the school. I get you with the schools. I'm totally hashtag school choice, and that's another thing you can thank Democrats for. I agree with you. Schools suck. Schools are still segregated, and you can thank Democrats for that because they're the ones that wanted them segregated in the first place. I think that, again, we can, Charlestonians, native Charlestonians, you find me a handful of them downtown, people in those $1 million houses that their families have been here for generations. They don't exist anymore. So it's not, we can choose to put another divider in there that's unnecessary and say the black Charlestonians were forced out of downtown, but the white Charlestonians were forced out of downtown too. It's not just, that's a class issue. What you're talking about, it's not a race issue. That's a class issue, which I'm also more than happy to talk about because I'm not one of these, I'm capitalist and I'm conservative, but I definitely agree that there's class disparities in this country. So that's what you're talking about with Charleston. It's not a race issue. That's a class issue, which we could talk about that too. Again, I just think it's adding unnecessary titles and dividing us and keeping us from addressing the real issues, which is, developing our city out of existence and making it a giant tourist trap to where it's not even somewhere people want to live anymore or can afford to if they wanted. It's that affects white and black people. It's become a city for rich white liberals, and that affects both of us. I have my time.
No, I'm asking how much time.
Go ahead. He said that's time. Yeah.
So what you're doing is going to cause the conversation not to happen because you don't want to call it what it is. You want to sugarcoat it. You want to put it as a class issue and all that. All this is racism. It's race. Until you can call a spade, we're never going to get anywhere. This is racism. These people were targeted. I get it. White people will get targeted. White people are victims of police as well. But when you look at the statistics and you're showing you that black people are twice the number as what you are for a same crime, you can't keep saying it's just a class or just the police. It's all across the board. So until we address the racist policies and the racism, because guess what? You're right. There is no law that says black people will get more time for the same crime. But the people who are enforcing those laws are racist. The people who are making that decision are racist. So until we address and go through the line and do all the racism, how we do that, I tell you simply how. We need a prison reform. We need to go back and look. Find how many people are arrested for one charge, for instance, weed. How many black men right now? How much time I got, King?
No, prison reform. I'm just making sure. You said prison, right? Prison reform? Okay, give him 10 more seconds.
So how many black people got more time in weed than what this white boy got for raping the white girl on camera and sharing on social media?
I agree with you.
You see what I'm saying? Think about that. I know white boys. I know white boys who don't get caught selling dope many times and home on the street. I got partners who got caught when they first sat doing time. I mean, for you to keep trying to disguise it and trying to say it's a class issue, it's a police issue. All this is based off race. All this is based off race. But the reason why we're going to be in this fight forever like this is because the system was never made for us from the start. It was never intended for us. We was not, when they wrote the constitutional laws, remember, we had to be included. It was never written for us to be part of it. The idea when we were brought here.
Time, Elvin.
You understand though, right? You understand to package this argument that way. And like I said, I understand that why people feel that way. Like I don't agree with it, but you understand why to say that. What you just said, the way you just said it, is basically to suggest that white people and black people can't live together in peace. Like we need to just separate and have a white country and a black country, because there's always going to be racism and black people are always going to be under the white man's heel. And if you really think that, which I don't think you really do, it's a good talking point and it gets people riled up. But if you really believe what you just said, then you just made an argument for basically apartheid and separating the races, because you feel black people will never be treated fairly by whites. It makes the same inference that white people may never be treated fairly by blacks. So we just can't live together in peace. Is that what you're suggesting? Because to say what you just said, there's no hope. We have no hope. Maybe that's why you're not talking about how we fix it. Maybe that's why you keep talking about the problem and keep repeating the same issues over and over again, because you don't have a solution to fix it, because your whole, outlook on the situation is we're fucked from the beginning. We can't live together in peace, because that's how you just said it. If unless you really think there's a way, that's what I want to know. How do we say, okay, there's racist white people, there's racist black people, there are assholes, there will always be assholes. As long as man's been walking upright, there's been assholes, and until we catch a meteor, there's going to be assholes. So can we just say, okay, to hell with the assholes? Can people like me and you, who are rational and want to actually fix the problem, do that, and not keep saying, oh, it's because you're black and this many of your people got killed, and well, I'm gay and this many of my people got killed. It's stupid. It's stupid. It doesn't fix anything. I'm pagan. I could go on and on about the way the pagans are treated. Like it's just
that's the time.
27.
Right. So what I said, I addressed everything, all right, and I did answer the question. So what I said, first of all, is we would have to do a reform. We would have to go back and address every person that has been given time and look at what they've been given time for, and how much people of opposite color was given the same amount of time as him. We would have to do a whole prison reform. Then you would have to go back and address those who are giving the time. So I did answer the question. I never said that we can't work together hand in hand. Never said that. As a matter of fact, one thing I truly believe that the only way we're going to address racism in this country is together, because we as blacks are the minority. We don't have enough of us on this planet or in the United States to change the culture here in the United States. There's not enough of us. I believe if the numbers are correct, we might be 27% of the population of the United States. So there's not enough of us alive in the United States to determine. So we're going to need help from the other side. We're going to need the other side to come together with us and say, hey, look, they're being done wrong. This is what needs to change. Now, how do we change that? You're going to have to start holding those who enforce these laws accountable. You're going to have to start going back and going at these judges. You're going to have to start going back at these cops. You're going to have to start calling these judges, looking at their trials, looking at their cases, and, hey, why did you give this man this amount of time, but you only gave this one that? The judge that gave that white boy 3 months. See, those are the kind of thing I'm talking about. Those kind of charges I'm talking about. These judges and these cops, hey, when you felt that you had to shoot and kill this one, you were in a high-speed chase over here. You didn't shoot him. You understand? Those are the kind of things that's going to have to be done every time if you want to address the racism in this country. So I did answer the question. But see, like I said, I even acknowledge what you said. I totally agree. There is no law that says black people should get more time than a white person. There is no law that says that.
All right, time.
All right, let me just finish the last sentence. However, the people who enforce the laws are doing that, and that's the problem.
Right, I agree, and that goes back to my original point. How my vision of systematic racism might differ from yours, because I see it as what's written in the law, and you see it as how it's being enacted, and that's why I say as long as we use that as our litmus test, we're going to be dealing with this forever, because there's always going to be racist people. And that's when you come back to the topic earlier, or the point earlier, where we just can't live in peace. That's silly. We have to focus on, like you said, the police reforms, and we're not going to be able. You said you want to work together, and I love that, and I hope that's true, and I hope more people in the country feel that way. And if that's the case, all I'm saying when it comes to the looting is we need to take that energy, I'm not even saying they're unjustified in doing it. I'm not even saying they're unjustified. I'm saying it's a waste of energy. I'm saying instead of doing that, because it's not a
again. I'm not going to have that conversation with you on the loop.
Hold on. Let him finish.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. I gotta get ready to run anyway. Go ahead. I'm gonna give about 2 more minutes. I gotta get ready to run.
I would love to get the people that have that energy and get that turned around across the street to the police station, so that we get people's actual attention on the real issue. You know, your police, we got to get rid of privatized prisons. That's got to go. We've got to get rid of minimum sentencing. That's got to go. We've got to get rid of victimless crimes. That's got to go. Recreational drug crimes. That's all got to go. But none of that has anything to do with race. And if we deal with all that, you and I will both lose half of our racial gripes in this country.
All right. Okay. Perfect. All right. Go ahead, Elvin.
I just want to, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and talk about the looting or whatever they're doing. I want, again, every time you bring that up, I want you to always remember they started off the protest peaceful. All right. I want you to remember that. Then I also want you to remember that when you watch those videos, you're not watching them. But see, the media had one clip. I saw one image where they had a black man walking out of Target with a TV. But then I watched the video and I saw a bunch of white people running out of Target with all kind of stuff. But see, it's the fake image they put out that it's us. No, we're actually in the streets. And another thing I want you to get, let me say that too. Another thing I want you to get out. Another thing I want you to get out. We ain't stupid. You know, the notion that we out here burning down our hood because we mad. No, we're not in our hood. There's no Targets in the hood. You live in Charleston. Where's there a Target in the hood?
Have you been to West Ashley's Target?
All right. Where's that at? Citadel Mall.
Is the giant.
That's not the hood.
Oh, please.
It's not the hood.
Okay.
There's a Target. Think about it. There's a Target in West Ashley. There's a Target in West Ashley, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a Target. There's a Target in Mount Pleasant. And there's a Target.
I hate
okay. There's a Target in Ashley Phosphate on the upper end of North Charleston. In Somerville, ain't no Target on the Macon. Ain't no Target in the Wayland. We don't got no damn Target in our hood. We don't got no Targets around here.
You can come to my Target.
So the fact of thinking that we so crazy that we burn up our neighborhood. No, we actually in their neighborhood. We there. We see it. And again, like I said, I don't even care. That to me is the casualty. I don't even care about it. I'm not going to talk about it. Guess what? If you want to talk about, and not saying you, but if anyone wants to address the fact of what they're doing, all right, I'm wrap this up. If anyone wants to address the fact of what they're doing in this riot and that turned to looting, I want to address how we got here. Because if that cop had not killed this black man in the street, Minnesota would not be on fire today.
Agreed.
So no, that's what I would talk about. I don't. Hey.
Okay. All right.
You
cool.
know.
So you want to chime in, James? You got some time?
No. I think when you get down to the crux, the heart and the soul of the argument, I think me and Elvin really do agree on what needs to be done. I think we may have differences of opinion on how we got to the problem, but I think as far as what the problem is, we agree pretty much. We just have different interpretations of that problem and maybe how we got there. I think this is a really important, every time this happens is a really important opportunity for our country to, like I said, I have families that are cops, and if family members that are cops, and if they see this, they're going to flip the hell out. But we've got to address it. It's out of control. They are public servants. They work for us. They're not hounds. This isn't Nazi Germany. We shouldn't have the brown shirts walking around looking for us, stepping out of line. This is our country. We're not kindergartners walking the line in an elementary school. I think cops need to be put back in check and reminded that they work for us.
Cool. Well, hey man, I appreciate these conversations. I mean, in all honesty, it's good to have these type of conversations. I mean, it is good, and being able to articulate what each side feels is a wonderful thing. That's what it's about. Dialogue. We can have our differences. We can have our disagreements. At the end of the day, putting everything out on the table is very critical. That's the key point. Putting everything out on the table, talking about how we feel, what the solutions need to be, how we can move forward. So I think, and majority of people on here, we got a lot of viewers tonight, man. It's a lot of viewers, and everybody is saying, this is what we needed. So I appreciate y'all, gentlemen. Anybody else want to say anything before we wrap up?
No, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. I'd love to come back on. Like I said, Elvin, I think we disagree on some things, but I think if people like me and you that really want to see change can put the bullshit aside and work together, maybe we can finally make some changes happen.
Yeah, well, and I listen. I mean, I don't have to always agree with everybody I speak to. A lot of people may not agree with what I say, but you know, one thing I do, we're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to address the racism of in everything. You know, you can't. We're never going to get a change if we keep disguising and trying to say, well, it's not really racist, it's this or that. All of this is based off racism. You know, the practices, the policies is based off racism.
So let me ask one. Let me ask one question before I go. Let me and on the and that's the question I wanted to answer. Elvin says everything is based off race, correct? Everything, like all of the decisions, everything
Oh yeah,
is based off race. Tyler says, not. I don't want to say nothing, but you say
I say there will always be people like that. That there will always be people like that that we'll have to contend with. So rather than just write the whole system off as racist and broken and leave it so the whole future of America is this hopeless pit of racism, let's deal with the people that go against what we both agree is acceptable in our society instead of just writing the whole system off as racist. That's my position.
Okay. All right, y'all. Well, I appreciate that, man. That was a good conversation. All right. Thank y'all very much, man. We get together. Appreciate you, Tyler, Elvin. Thanks a lot. Thank y'all.
Have a great night.
Yes, sir.